Yes.
You're rolling.
Okay, we are rolling. I'm Joe Reingold, and I'm interviewing Deno Taglioli. And today is Wednesday, September 11th, an infamous day, 2019. And we're happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
Welcome. Tell us a little bit about your family, what you know of them, your roots.
Well, my family is from Italy, Europe. I'm first generation. My mom and dad, my father was born in northern Italy, and my mom was born about an hour and a half out of Rome, which would be kind of a mid-southern part of the country, in a place called Sulmona. And their roots go back generations. I had an opportunity to go back to Italy a few years back and literally trace my last name back to the town where my father and his father and their father it came from, which is very unique and interesting. So they came here right about the time of World War II, and first my grandfather came. And generally in speaking, that's the course of action that the families took. The father, my mom's father, came here, and it was on the boat, and it was through Ellis Island. He'd come here, and everybody, and I'm from Detroit, so everybody at that point went, where's their work? Where can we get a job? And that's when Henry Ford was building cars and automobiles, and everybody kind of made their way to Detroit. And my grandfather came, and back then, you had to have a sponsor. They still have today, but you had to have a sponsor, somebody that would actually take responsibility for you to come to this country, and to basically, you have a place to live, somebody that would support you, and for about 4 years. So my grandfather came here, he knew some people, lived in the basement, and saved his money, and then brought his family over. And they came over on the boat, and through Ellis Island. And at that time, it was my grandmother and my mom, her siblings. And so there was quite a few. There was about 5 total. And some of the stories my mom tells me is about, like, when the country or the government up in Detroit, when they came to help the people, they didn't hand out checks then. They came and said, how many people are here? And she said, well, there are 5 of us. Okay, so you need 5 pairs of shoes, and you need a warm winter coat, because they encouraged those folks then to go out and find work, find jobs. So I thought that was really interesting,
Right. Instead of a hand out, a hand up, kind of.
Yeah. So my roots, I'm from Detroit. I'm first generation. I was born in Detroit. Music was always a big part of my family. My mom could sing. Her father could play the mandolin. But of course, they would never think about getting into the music business because that was kind of a luxury. Back in 1930 and the 40s, you had to try to make a living, and it was all about making money. And we came over, and they couldn't speak the language, and they had a dialect, which back then was a handicap. To have a dialect, could keep you from getting a better job back then. If you had a dialect back then, you might be someone, well, we need you to do custodial work. We need you to help lay concrete, whatever. So now things have changed so much where if you have dialects, it makes no difference. If you speak 2 languages, that's great.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So my mom wanted to Americanize me so I wouldn't have those handicaps, perhaps. So my real name is Dean. My father's name was Deno. And she gave me the name Dean because Dean Martin, Dean was American. But it's funny because my friends just started calling me Deno, which I like, because my father's name, and I think it has a little more soul,
More ethnicity.
Pardon me?
More ethnicity,
I
sort
think
of.
so, right. Right, and that's the thing that I loved about growing up. In Detroit, it was the Jewish community. It was the Polish community. It was the Greeks, the Italians. Where I come from, it's all cultures. And that's what I loved about it. I loved to listen to my grandmother and my mom and all the friends speak their native language, to speak Italian. Yeah, I love that, you know, and I miss that, being here, away from home, so to speak. You know.
So when did you leave Detroit?
So I grew up in Detroit. My family's very musical. Loved music, didn't do it professionally. And when I said to my mom, I said, you know, I want to play music. Oh, you want to play music? First person he called was Meyer Shapiro. Meyer Shapiro was the first violist in the Detroit Symphony. Meyer, who should he study with? Oh, Ray Makowski. Ray Makowski was my mentor. And he just passed away recently. And good man. Studied music with him, Detroit Symphony, and I got a scholarship to come down to Texas.
Oh.
And that's what brought me to Texas. I had a scholarship, musical scholarship. I came here, finished school, worked on my master's degree.
Where were you?
I studied at Wayne State in Detroit for 2 years. Then I got the scholarship to come to the University of Texas in Arlington.
Oh.
In Arlington.
Yeah.
Because at that time, there was a new band director there, and he was focusing on jazz. So I had studied classical music my whole life. But I loved to play jazz, but I never had the opportunity. So when I had some friends coming here on scholarship, I was able to get a scholarship, and I learned how to play jazz. I played the Montrose Jazz Festival. I played the Brazilian Jazz Festival with Dizzy Gillespie and Max Roach and El Giro. So I had those opportunities in college. Graduated from college, and then I went to work on my master's at North Texas University. Great music school. It was after that I started my band, Emerald City, in 1983. So
You just dated me. I remember when you first got started.
you remember, don't you?
I do.
We have over 3 decades of beautiful relationships. You know, incredible opportunities with people. Yeah.
All right, so you stayed here.
So
Made
yeah,
this your home, this
so I
area.
made Dallas my home. Made Dallas my home. Started the band, and then the journey started with my music. Yeah.
So what were some of the earlier gigs that you had?
Well, early on, we played a lot of clubs back then. A lot of clubs. I can remember a time when, in the 80s, that bar mitzvahs, weddings, they didn't use bands, they used DJs. I don't know if you remember this. Where I come from, I was playing Jewish weddings, Italian weddings, when I was 14 years old. Every wedding had a band. They didn't have a DJ up in Detroit, in Michigan, in the north. But coming here in Dallas, you know, we had DJs. So there was a point where that changed. And then I started being asked to do weddings and to do these private events, special events, fundraisers. But at first, we were just nothing but playing clubs. In the 80s, through 83, 84, 85, and in 86 or so, it started changing.
How did you get the rest of your band members?
Well, you know, finding good musicians and coming up band members is kind of like looking for a good doctor, right? You ask your friend, who did that surgery on your back? You know, so it's like, you know, you go, oh, you need to check out this drummer or this bass player or this musician. And we're in a community of musicians, so we made our way to the good players. But you got to remember, back then we didn't have a lot of work, so it was tough to keep good musicians with you, because if there's another opportunity that pays more, they're going to be gone. So, you know, we developed a really good band, so a lot of musicians would stay with us even though they weren't making money. We're talking $25 a night. That's nothing. That's nothing. That's called paying dues, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, as you built up your notoriety and people were hearing about you guys more and more, how did you get a really strong connection with people in the Jewish community?
Well, I think intrinsically, and I've been told this before, being Italian, there's a lot of similarities. I've been told that I'm probably more Jewish than I'm Italian, okay? I've been told that, and I look at it as a compliment, okay? I swear to God, I remember being
If you
in
sit on
Barbara-
your hands, can you still talk?
Huh?
If you don't use your hands, can you?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I remember once being in, I did a wedding for Barbara Zale. I remember, lovely lady, and doing a wedding for her family, and talking to her, and being at her house, and music, and she said I reminded her of her son. And I always loved that connection. But I think what happens is that we played, being from Detroit, and having played Jewish weddings, and being a part of the community there, that it wasn't like it was all foreign to me coming here. I had a lot of friends in the community in Detroit, and I learned about the Horus, and I knew about all this. So coming here, and then I played at a few Jewish weddings, and word of mouth. You need to hire this band, great band leader, take good care of you, and it evolved, and it just evolved more and more and more. And I've done hundreds of Jewish weddings.
Wow.
Hundreds. Some of my best friends are Jewish. You know, Mitch Moskowitz is a great friend of mine. Evan Bates, Rabbi Weinberg. He's from Southfield, Michigan.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
All very good friends of
Same
mine.
accent as you have.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So there's a beautiful connection.
Very good. What kind of things besides music have you gotten involved in Dallas, if anything?
Well, we tend to, you know, when we take on fundraisers and galas, no matter what it is, if it's for the Jewish Community Center, or if it's for cancer research, or the Heart Institute, or whatever, we do a ton of those events. And we always give back on those events, and we always participate, and we become long-standing supporters of all those. So I spend a lot of my time when it comes to giving back or being part of organization, part of the relationship I have with those, and not only personally, but professionally. What we bring to the table with our band, and they hire our band to do that. We help raise money, you know. We take our money and give it back to those organizations. So, yeah, that's a big part of my life.
Any of those stand out as your absolute favorite as far as charities or that kind of work?
You know, when we do jobs like when we're participating with the Samaritan Inn or the Hope Gala, where it's really about raising money for underprivileged kids, underprivileged families, the abuse, the shelters. That seems to touch me quite a bit. You know,
Yeah.
they tend to stand out.
Let me ask you, how have you seen Dallas change since you first got here till now?
Well, physically, I can remember playing in the 80s on Beltline Road, you know, in Addison. I can remember being 2-lane. It might even been dirt, you know. And so physically, I've seen the city change, where now Beltline's, you know, four lanes going each way. I can remember that North Dallas went to Willow Bend. That was as far as it went, where they were playing polo up there. And now it goes all the way past Denton, you know. I've seen it change that way. I've seen it change too. The communities are growing, and there are just more relationships that we have. You know, Clyde Warren Park, you know, the family. I've had the opportunity with them, and Lucy Billingsley. Who has helped develop Dallas. So Trammell Crow, and I've worked with these families, and Craig Hall, all these people. So I've had a lot of, I've seen it go. You know, when you're in the middle of it too, you don't see it. It's like seeing a relative and you haven't seen him, a little niece, and you see him and go, oh my God, last time I saw you were here. Now, you're all grown up. We're in the middle of it, so we don't see it. But like this summer I was gone, and just in my own neighborhood in Plano, I came back this summer and there was a whole nother other development that had started, been built and done while I was gone. So the city is growing constantly.
You mentioned some of the musicians who were your role models early on. Can you think of anybody in later years, maybe here in this area, who's been a role model to you?
Well, all my educators, you know, in school were role models to me, and I was very fortunate. Larry Radcliffe was one band director I had. He was my percussion instructor at the University of Texas in Arlington, who's gone on to conduct symphonies in Europe, and he's a professor, I believe, at Rice right now. And he also taught at Interlochen, which is a school I studied at in Upper Michigan. So all my drum instructors that I've had, Steve Houghton, who now teaches out in a university in California, you know, all those people played a big role in my life musically. Of course, along the way, there's always been the Marshall Ivories. There's been the jazz players that have been, you know, mainstays here in Dallas that I would go to and listen to. Because in our field of business, it's a lot of listening, a lot of watching. Mm-hmm. That's how we get mentored, you know. And so there's always been a ton of people that have helped me along the way in that regard, you know.
Very good. Can you think of something in your life that you are perhaps the most proud of?
Well, I think the biggest sense of satisfaction I get is I love performing for people, and it's not just because of the music. It's because of the reaction the music brings to the people. It's how I can take people who haven't been out of the house in a long time, haven't danced in a long time, maybe lost a loved one, you know, and haven't been, you know, have gone out, just to see their reaction, to see them come up to me at the end of the job and say, I haven't smiled like this, I haven't danced like this, I haven't had such a good time like this. And I feel that's why I'm here, you know. Yeah, the music is a conduit of all the studying I did. So when people think of me as Emerald City, they think of singer. They don't know I study classical. They don't know I study with the best. They don't know that I write. They don't know that I do all these sorts of things. They just see an entertainer. But maybe all those things prepared me to be the entertainer, to help touch people. So that's the key. I get the most satisfaction out of.
I'm welling up. Last but not least, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to add? Let everybody know.
No, I think I think in a short time, I think we've highlighted, you know, the important parts of my journey. You know, my mom and dad. My mom played a big role in my life. You know, my dad worked from the time he woke up to night. My mom was a stay-home mom, and you know, you want to play the drums? Well, we're going to get you Ray Mikowski, who was from the Detroit Symphony. And you know, if I didn't practice, she'd say, "Get over here and practice." I want to go outside. You're not going anywhere till you practice. You know, if you want to take lessons, you're going to practice. You know, my teacher, you know, nowadays you go to private lesson, they charge you, what is it, like $100 an hour. It's incredible. When I was taking, to take you back, $6, half hour. Ray Mikowski would take me in the basement, and we would study and not come up for 2 hours, 3 hours. He never looked at his watch. That's the kind of teacher I had.
Fabulous.
So it's really the mentors, my mom, my dad, these educators that made me who I am today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Very good. Great job.